Welcome to the Smith Publicity All Things Book Marketing Podcast, offering tips, insights, and advice from the best in the publishing industry. Hi, and welcome to this episode of All Things Book Marketing. I'm your host, Olivia McCoy, and today I have Nickcole Watkins for our open book episode. Hi.
Hi, Olivia. Thanks so much for having me on the show today.
Thank you for joining. Nickcole is from our BD team, and she's here to talk to us a little bit different of an episode. We're going to talk about the agency model versus the publishing model and some of the difference. So this episode is going to appeal maybe more to our professionals out there, our publishing professionals or publishing grads, students, anyone interested in the industry background. So let's have you start by telling us your professional background and what you did before Smith, what brought you to Smith.
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you so much, Olivia, for asking. So prior to coming on board with Smith, I actually worked in publishing for 8 years and worked directly with authors. So I really helped guide them through the process from taking the book from a manuscript format to the physical book itself, and then the big question of what's next, and really leaned into the area of being really a guide for them on the marketing side, how to, prepare for the ultimate launch of their book in accordance with their website, what they need to have there, and content that they were sharing through their social media.
Okay, so kind of similar to mine. I also worked at an independent publisher. I was a marketing associate. So it sounds like maybe I worked more hands-on, one-on-one with specific marketing services than you did in the past.
Yeah, it was really my role, and my team's role was really being that guiding light to authors. So all of the authors that came through and had questions of what do I need to do while I'm waiting for the book to be, completely formatted, going through all the production items as they were waiting for the book to actually be in a physical form. It was really making sure that they had everything in place before they were able to get their physical books, and just preparing for that ultimate book launch, working in, newsletters and gathering up their network to help support their goals for the book launch.
So kind of like the consultations that we do here at Smith then.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love that. I love consults. I do a lot of them here. They're my favorite. Author education is just, I don't know, something about it is really rewarding to me.
Yes. And there's so many authors that, they all come from different backgrounds. You've got your first time debut authors that are just gearing up and excited for, just the process itself, but they're also feeling that sense of overwhelm because there is so much information out there. So having that sounding board, having someone that can advise them and take a look at what their online platform looks like and what their idea of success is overall for why they wrote the book in the first place. It's nice to have someone there to help guide them through that process.
So what does your role look like here at Smith? How is it different than what you were doing there?
Yeah, so it's definitely been a bit of a transition from what the role was that I had with the publisher. Here I am on the business development team, so it's those initial conversations that we're having with authors that are looking for PR support. And maybe they don't know if it is PR support that they need. Maybe it's just digital marketing support that they need. So it's nice to come together with them in those early conversations and help really chisel down what it is that they're looking to accomplish by hiring either a PR firm, or maybe it is that digital marketing partner that they actually need. So I like to say that us on the business development side are the matchmakers of the company, because we're really looking to look at, again, what the goals and the needs are of the potential clients coming to us, and making sure that it's a mutual fit. We want to make sure that our team has the skill sets, has the media contacts that really make sense for their genre, their message, and then that we're going to have an active partner within that client, within working with that author. So it is really kind of this beautiful blend of being matchmakers at the end of the day to make sure that we are going to have an effective campaign.
Was there a specific reason you switched from working in-house to working here at Smith, or a move, life changes?
Yeah, I am a lifelong student, so I really enjoy this industry and I love absorbing all of the information that comes with it. So it was just a journey to switch gears a little bit and learn a little bit more about the publicity side of the industry and to work in that capacity. So it again just really was continuing to further my education and my skill set within the industry.
It's so weird because I'm hearing a lot of my own reasoning and experience in your answers, except you seem to have more of a high level overview author conversation background, both with your publisher and here at Smith. You're talking bigger discussions about preparing for launch and things, whereas I, in both jobs as well, was more specific. Maybe doing the work hands-on on the ground floor, kind of I'm putting the ads into place, I'm the one pitching the media, like more in the weeds of it. What was it like working at an in-house publisher? I know for me, one of the big things when people ask is internal communication. It's huge in the agency model here at Smith. It's huge in the publisher, but I find that we have a lot less internal meetings at Smith than we did in-house at the publisher.
Yes, I would definitely say that has been a difference that I've seen. There was, a lot of internal meetings within the publishing company that I worked for, and then too, the difference of our internal team having those discussions and then really aligning ourselves with the sales and distribution team. There's that piece of it too.
Yeah.
So as you well know, there's that system of, what are our current titles? What are the projecting out and seeing what kind of activity we're expecting and the types of titles that are coming out, how we can really help to get distribution as far and deep and wide as possible. So it's all of those connections coming together.
Yeah, exactly. It's there are just so many more moving pieces in a publishing house. Because even I remember having meetings with editorial or design to talk about, okay, but if we went with this kind of cover, would that affect marketing? If we went with this kind of title, would that affect marketing or helping write copy and stuff like that? And we do a bit of that here at Smith still, but it's a lot less working with those teams hands-on in person.
Yes. It's the process of watching things from start to finish. And that was one of our mottos. It's a process.
Yeah.
Because it is very much, it is a marathon. It's not this quick race. There are a lot of moving parts, as you mentioned. I definitely helped a lot with, the back cover copy. And we, in life, we try to tell people, don't judge a book by its cover, but when you're in the industry, that can make or break, especially if we're talking about a good fiction book or children's book. The illustrations, those kind of elements are so important when it comes to pitching out to the bookstores and then even translating into if they do go on to hire a publicist or PR firm. Those things do matter in the end. That is a piece of the element of the overall picture that some authors may not be thinking of, or they may not feel they have the right kind of support to make some of those tougher decisions.
And I do want to note that Smith had a little bit of a leg up coming into COVID because a lot of Smith's employees are remote. And so we already had a really good handle on communication over Skype and video conferencing and things like that, whereas a lot of publishers are now adapting or have adapted. I do want to note that both you and I worked in publishing houses before COVID, so maybe it's changed since then, how many in-person meetings they're having. I know where I used to work, they're now almost completely remote, and they weren't when I was there, but
yeah, I would say that's an interesting point, Olivia. And the publishing house that I came from, I think we were ahead of the curve a little bit in that because we already had such a remote team. We did the hybrid approach of working a few days in the office, working from home. So once COVID hit, it really wasn't a big shock to our team as far as how we were working with it was kind of business as usual. Things just looked a little bit different, but we were already prepped and poised for that more hybrid approach.
So I'm currently mentoring a couple students from my undergrad, and they have a lot of questions about working in an agency versus in-house. And one of them was, how hands-on do you get to be with authors? And how many authors are you working with at each? Do you get to work with more at one? Do you get to work more closely with authors at another? What was your experience?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question and something definitely to consider for those that are looking to either work in-house with a publisher or at an agency structure. So when I was in-house at the publisher that I worked for, I did work more closely with the authors. So that is something that is different than how I interact with authors here at Smith. So working with the publisher, as I mentioned, I worked very closely. I mean, we would, I think, publish about 200 authors a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to kind of put hands on just about every one of those authors in some capacity. And it was really being part of their journey, seeing them go through the production side of it, but then the marketing side of it as well. That as I mentioned earlier, that big question of, I've got my book, so now what? Whether it was setting up, helping set up book signing events, things of that nature. And so it is a little bit different here at Smith because I have those very early on conversations where it's before they become a client. It's that potential. So it's working with them in that very early stage of, what type of support are you looking for? And it is like a quick touch. So it's that, and then they're off to working with their publicity team. But the great thing is that, we still have eyes on the campaign as it's going through. So we're always there in the background, but I always tell authors up front, I'm not a publicist, so you don't want me leading your campaign. But I'm always there as a support to them as well as our team. So if they ever have any questions or concerns throughout their time going through their campaign, I'm still able to have that touch point with them.
I have a couple questions about promotion and the different types, and I don't feel too guilty about talking so much about book marketing because it is the All Things Book Marketing podcast. Mm-hmm. But I noticed in my own experience, and I'm curious to see if it was true for you, that in the publisher model, it was a lot more segmented: branding versus marketing versus publicity versus digital media, which is kind of a mix of marketing and publicity. That was 3 separate departments within our publisher. And remind me, was your publisher traditional, independent?
We were traditional, but we definitely operated as we would call, a hybrid publisher because the authors did have a lot of say-so in the process. So there was that feel of a hybrid approach.
Okay, cool. I know here at Smith we do blur the lines a lot more because we're specialized, and I think maybe that's the key as an agency model specialized in publicity and book promotion. We can kind of say, oh, well, we do all book marketing that includes branding and marketing and publicity, mostly publicity with a heavy emphasis on branding. I know we're just now kind of branching into traditional marketing as advertising and such goes, but would you say, I don't know, did you see the kind of same thing in your experience?
A little bit. So when I was working in-house with the publisher, we had a lot of guidance for our authors that really, because we worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. So that was kind of the heart of our approach and the type of authors that we published. And so it was really working in a lot of the guerrilla marketing tactics. And I think that's so important for authors to understand too, that, they are a key piece in all of this. And especially on the marketing side, they got to be comfortable a little bit with rolling up their own sleeves as we get into things like, their website, their social media, and their online platform. So it's definitely, I think there are similarities to your experience versus mine. I don't think we had it segmented out quite as much. It was more of like an overarching umbrella of these are the things that, especially as an entrepreneur, kind of taking more of that guerrilla marketing approach. Here's some of the steps as you kind of reverse engineer from when your book's going to come out. These are the things that you need. These are the steps that you need to be taking as you build up to that book launch.
what were some of the professional skills that you learned in-house versus here? What do you utilize most in your day-to-day as far as like communication or research, organization, those types of fundamental professional skills?
Oh, I would say on the publisher side of things, I came in with a really strong background in customer service. So the role that I took on at the publisher really fed well into that. But I would say a lot of the skills that I learned there were more on the side of behind the scenes for publishing. So like when we get into metadata, how all of that flows out to your online platforms for, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and then to the communication and how things need to be set up for the sales and distribution team and how all of that works from publisher, those relationships, the links between publisher, author, and the sales and distribution into the bookstores. So it was really, I would say, more of the behind the scenes of how all of that metadata goes in and where that's going and why some of those were so important to how that was going to present to the different book retailers. And then here at Smith, I would say definitely everything that I've learned on the business development side, because it's just such a different role that I had coming from the publisher. So it's more about the, proposal writing and putting together the campaigns, which is a fun puzzle. I absolutely love having those initial conversations with authors, seeing what their goals are, seeing what their budget is, and then taking all of those pieces and creating this beautiful outlay of this is where we could take you. And this is what a partnership with our team could look like. And there's just something really, really amazing and fun about that, to be able to be a part of that process and where we could elevate.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that, I guess. And I come from a true hybrid indie publisher, so I'm sure that it's pretty different. I would say there was a lot more client management. I guess the client management's a big piece in both, but I do feel like I do more writing here, and probably because there's a bigger focus on publicity. But
sure, yeah,
I see that too. Let's ask the big question now: work-life balance and flexibility. What kind of support did you see in the publisher versus here? How was work-life balance at each as well?
I think that's the one area that really translated well, because again, our team already had that hybrid structure. And as well as I know that in this industry, it really comes back to the individual. If you're given that openness to be a little creative with your schedule, to have that flexibility, I think where a lot of people during COVID struggled is with that balance between having the self-discipline, because that's a big part of it. In this industry, like, the work is never done. So it's really being mindful of, okay, I'm going to be done at this particular time. I will definitely say that when I worked with a publisher, I had days where I worked into the night. There were some weekends where I might have pulled a couple of hours here or there. And as I grew my family and looking at the work, the importance behind taking that step back, I really became more diligent in saying, okay, I know that the work is never done and there's always something that I can continue working on, but I've got to cut myself off at this time. And working from home too, it can be a little challenging because you're there in your home. So what I would do at the end of the day is just shut the office door, kind of have that sense of leaving the office, if you will, and really making sure that I set boundaries for myself and that I stuck with those boundaries, because we live, I think, in a culture mindset. I think we're getting better about it, but it's that hustle mentality. It's that burnout, that
grind.
Oh gosh, yes. And that's been praised for so long, and I'm seeing us get away from that. But we really become more productive, more innovative when we take the time to step back and sit in quiet have that time to be able to let the creativity actually manifest itself. So it's really being disciplined if you're going to work from home and have that bit of flexible schedule and setting those boundaries and sticking with them.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that as well, especially working at a publisher. There was a lot more overhead. So they had structures in place for here's what we expect, here's how you do things, versus here they really focus on your expertise. How you do things is how you do things best. And so having that, like you said, discipline is huge. And I know starting out my career, I really needed that structure. But now that I know what I'm doing, I feel like the flexibility really comes in hand. So yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask, where can our listeners find you and follow you on social media and such? And I did realize your name is going to be in the episode title. So the spelling is there, but go ahead and spell us.
Excellent. Yes. So I would say LinkedIn is going to be the best place. And yes, as you've mentioned, my name is spelled a little bit different. So I have a little trick for people to remember it. It's basically like two names, Nick and Cole. Put it together, Nickcole. And last name Watkins. So LinkedIn is absolutely going to be the best place to stay connected.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure, and what an exciting time that we're in.
Thank you for listening to All Things Book Marketing. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, subscribe, and send it to anybody else that might be interested. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Smith Publicity All Things Book Marketing Podcast. To reach us and learn about our many services, visit smithpublicity.com or send us an email to info@smithpublicity.com.